We Were Gamers, episode 20, 20, JJ. It's 2 decades old.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 20 years.
One a year. I think we made that joke before.
Yeah, it's good. I think we made that joke when it was old enough to drive.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I, of course, 20 episodes in, forgot to turn my headphones down, so we're going to have to edit out all the echo from the beginning of this episode.
Exciting. It's the We Were Gamers production minute.
Yay! We're such pros.
Yeah.
It feels like a big number, but it's really only 20 weeks straight. I think like 26 is a big number, because that's half a year.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Which feels odd to say, right? Because, like, you know, all the big celebrations for your 21st birthday, but like 25 years in business and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, they all happen on like kind
Fives.
of roundish 5s and 10s.
Yeah. Well, we'll celebrate at 26 with something special, I'm sure.
Or just do, the years. But then do you want to celebrate at 104? Is that the 2-year mark? Seems weird. And the numbers just get weirder as you go on.
Let's worry about 6 episodes ahead, not...
I don't know. I don't know if 84? I can think 6 episodes ahead. That's too many.
I never think that far ahead. Although we need to, because we probably have a guest coming soon and we need to plan that.
Okay, cool.
All right, production minute over.
Woo!
Hey, well, I'm going to start off by complaining. It's fantasy football time.
Oh, yeah, fantasy football.
FF time.
No, I shouldn't be happy.
You shouldn't be?
I should be depressed.
What happened?
I lost every single game I played in this week.
Okay, so JJ, for context, is in 3 fantasy football leagues, and I am in
3 different ones. Yeah.
3 different separate leagues with 3 separate teams. How similar are your teams in terms of your player roster?
There's some commonality in some of them, but the rosters aren't terribly similar.
My only disappointment in both leagues is that I have Todd Gurley.
Yeah, I didn't see or hear anything about that game other than the final score, which was low to also low.
Todd Gurley plays for the Rams, and the Rams and Seahawks played this past week, and it was 9-3, which in football means they basically did nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh boy, JJ. Well, I won 1 game out of 2.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
50-50, can't complain.
50-50. Not the one I was hoping after making 6 roster moves in my keeper league.
Ouch.
But, I picked up Will Fuller in the league we're in together, and that got me back to 1-1, so no complaints there.
He worked out really good. Just to start, that auction league that I'm in, I was really hoping to bounce back from a bad first week. I did not bounce back from a bad first week.
Did it get worse?
Yeah, it did. My overall score in that league was 66.02. Now, that's that league is half PPR, so there's got the fractional points in there.
Just a reminder for people, to win your league, you need to average 104.
Yeah, ish. And the number's different for different rule sets, and the rule sets in that league is a little different than the one that you and I are in.
Well,
but by and large, 100 a week is a good number that you want to be at. Now, 66 is low. It's a lot lower than 100, let's say. And that is a 10-team league, not a 12-team league like the one I'm in with you. Yeah, so that's real low.
Yeah, so for context, for those people that don't know, basically, the amount of teams you have in a league changes the math roughly on what you need to accomplish per week, because the amount of players and therefore the quality of player and the amount of points they score is spread out across more teams. So you would then not have as many high-powered people on the same team, right?
Mm-hmm. It also has slightly less roster positions than in the one I play with you. There's only 1 flex instead of 2. So the numbers tend to stay a little bit lower, but still, I mean,
same amount of bench, right?
Yeah.
So you're still drafting the same roughly.
Yeah, the number of people out there is the same as if it was a 10-team league, but it's just you don't have as many playing people each
Right.
week. So the numbers, overall scores stay low. Anyway, basically what happened is that I had 70 points on my bench and 66 points on my starters.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I lost. Basically, every game that I pictured in my head, like the scenarios for how the games would go, sort of went the opposite of the way I thought it was going to go. That's on me.
I was trying to explain to Katie this past week that playing fantasy football is a game of one-upsmanship and how badly your team performed. So, like, oh, you say that, like, oh, yeah, I left 70 points on my bench. And somebody else comes back with, well, at least you didn't make the decision to drop your defense that got you 1 point for a defense that got you 2 points, while the defense that you dropped got 10 points and would have won you your game.
Yeah. Those are the kinds of things that you can do. Or you could say, like, I didn't play Eric Decker in that league last week because I thought it was a bad matchup, and then he got 80 points, or 28 points.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I made the same decision. He's sitting on my bench in the keeper league, and
well, now Andrew. Now you and I both know better, and we're gonna start Eric Decker every week, right?
Probable, yes.
Because the meme joke that I saw out there on the internet was the 3 certain things in life. And it's death, it's taxes, and Eric Decker touchdowns. So, I think I'm just going to put Eric Decker in every week because he's apparently matchup proof.
Oh my goodness, that's good. That's really good. You know what isn't matchup proof apparently is Odell Beckham, or I should be more clear, Eli Manning.
That's also true because in that league, I also played Eli Manning. Because I assumed that was going to be a high-scoring game, and it was not. To be fair, though, it turned out to be a only slightly better choice than my other quarterback, who was Russell Wilson. So,
wow.
Yeah, I didn't have good choices in that league that week. My tight end got me 2 points. My running back, Arian Foster, got me 0.9. Didn't even get to 1
hamstring
before he was out. Yep. Ingram did okay. Jordy Nelson did good. But it was kind of just a big bleh week for everyone. My defense got me 2, my kicker got me 2. It was just not a good week. Not a good week for JJ. What are you gonna do?
And I commiserate with you, JJ.
And a similar feeling sort of flowed across my other leagues as well, where it was like, oh, the other guy got the touchdown that week. Oh, just stuff was bad.
Rough, man, real rough.
Yes.
I feel you, and we continue to complain here every week. I do laugh, though, that in our league, everyone's 1-1, except for our brand new addition, Andrew Lee's 2-0 with his
I know, man, he
freaking
destroyed me last
Drew
week.
Brees to whatever, Willie Snead.
He doesn't have Drew Brees, though.
He doesn't? Oh, I thought he did.
No, I have Drew Brees.
Oh, that's right. You snaked him. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And he's still in first.
Yep, he's still in first. I know, right?
Why did we let him in, man?
Who could say?
All right,
but I noticed our significant others played each other this week, though.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah.
I assume Katie lost poorly because she told me she had 57 points.
It was the biggest blowout of the week.
Oh, yeah, gosh.
The point differential was 73.
Wow.
It's quite bad.
That's more points than you got on one
in that other league. I know, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I assume Katie just had a real bad week this week, just like I did in that other league. So.
I think that Aaron Rodgers basically did absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And her offense is predicated on Aaron Rodgers doing something.
One of those Packer kind of players.
Exactly. Well, tonight's another waiver and tomorrow's another week, I guess.
Yeah, and there were a lot of injuries this week. Adrian Peterson will maybe play football again. Who can say? Meniscus tear. I don't know what that is, but it sounds very painful.
A meniscus, I believe, and I'm not going to do research, but I believe your meniscus is the layer.
Meniscus?
Yeah, exactly. Done. It's the layer of cartilage that is on top of your bone in your knee.
Okay, see, that doesn't seem like a thing you can just like make work again.
Yeah, it's not good. Tearing
it's like one of those things where like it's kind of busted now.
I think generally the repair for that is going in, taking it out, and replacing it with something else.
Yeah, like okay, so it's surgery is what it is.
I believe so, but I'm not a doctor and I don't do research, so.
And neither of us are Adrian Peterson. So.
None of us, yeah. Well, at least we didn't have to get carted through a restaurant to get to the locker room.
Man, what was that? What was that?
I don't know. The Vikings have got their head on all backwards.
That stadium, wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, it looks like we're all stuck in the middle. Basically, everyone except for Gronkow Mules. I think that's Chris. Chris is in last at 0-2. So basically, the entire league's still pretty close together.
Yeah, I mean, it's only the second week. How far apart could anyone be?
Yeah.
But it looks like no one's running away with it, so that'll be exciting. The league looks like it might stay close this year, which should be fun.
I don't know. So let's see. Wait, hold on one second.
Looking at point totals for all the leagues, or for all the teams, there's a pretty good amount, like clustered right around like from
200 and up.
200 and up, yeah.
Although somebody else has 276, so.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that one. I think that's the auto draft.
Undoubtedly. Also, I think he had 140 last week, so that's like a lot.
Yikes. Okay. It's been a busy week, JJ, other than fantasy football.
What has been busy?
Thursday, wine tasting. Friday, beer luncheon. Saturday, wedding in Santa Barbara. Sunday, out to pick up our daughter, then back to Santa Barbara to visit with someone from, I'm just going to say she's from Europe because she spends most of her time there. American, but.
Did you drive home from Santa Barbara, pick up your child, and then drive back to Santa Barbara?
No.
Is that what you just said?
No, thankfully we just drove to the valley and then back to Santa Barbara.
Okay. Well, that's not as bad, but that's still quite a ways.
Well, it is what it is. But, shout out to Three Windows Brewing in Santa Barbara. They're pretty good.
Cool.
They didn't leave a lot of time for too much this week in terms of gaming.
Was the wedding good?
Oh, yeah. Cool? It was a fantastic wedding. It was at a little park called Lions Park. And it was cool, man. It was like 100 people, but it felt like a in a weird way, it felt like if you got married back in the day, right? Like on a farm or something, because it was so secluded and it had this nice little like wooden building that everybody went to for the reception, but it was still on the park grounds and all that sort of stuff. And people were there basically until they kicked us out, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah. It was pretty cool, but it didn't leave a ton of time for sitting down on my computer and getting into a heavy game. So I tried two things this week, and I want to pick your brain about both of them.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Which one do you want first?
You decide. Give me a thing to talk about.
A or B?
Let's go with B.
Ooh.
I'm
going to have to delete that one.
Guess we're going to go with A then.
No,
because you could just change it without telling us which is which. So this whole exercise was silly.
I think A will be shorter, but B's good. I want your opinion on mobile games that have been ported to PC. So this past week,
that have been ported to PC. Okay,
exactly. I don't know if you've played any, but this past week, a long, long time ago, in my playing the Steam auction. Do you remember the Steam auction? We should talk about this. So Steam, the platform, for people that don't know, is a digital platform for purchasing games. You buy your games digitally now. Almost no one buys physical box things for games on PCs.
Some people still do, but yeah, they're crazy.
I mean, almost no one is my point.
Oh, on PC, even more so, yeah.
Yes, on PC. I mean, for consoles, you still buy boxes because there's not that much storage space on a console, but on a PC...
all of them allow external hard drives these days.
I know, right?
Anyhow, sorry. Continue your story.
Sidetracking me. PC games mostly distributed through Steam, I think, is the consensus, right?
It's the biggest marketplace these days, yeah.
And even if you buy codes through like Amazon or other purveyors,
A
most of the
lot of
time,
them are just codes to activate on Steam,
exactly,
which means Steam was involved at some point.
exactly. You install your game through the Steam app. The game is then in your Steam library, and you play it from there. So it's kind of like an all-in-one system where it kind of organizes all your stuff in one place. You just click a button and you play your games.
Yep, it's pretty nice in that way.
Yeah, especially because now they've added in the ability for mods and stuff like that to be downloaded through their app as well and organized, etc. It's pretty great. That was years and years and years ago. Anyway, last year Steam did a thing where you could trade in digital items for a currency, and then you could use the currency to bid on games within their ecosystem. Early on in that process, before they cut back on what people were allowed to do, you could kind of play the market for money, for currency and trading these things in and out, etc. And I made a decent amount of money selling off this digital currency and also having some left over to purchase games. And one of the things that were uber cheap in the auction were these games called Sid Meier's Ace Patrol.
Sid Meier's Ace Patrol.
Exactly. So who's Sid Meier's, JJ?
Sid Meier is a person, I assume, who works at a noted strategy game developer, Firaxis. I don't know who he worked for when he developed whatever Ace Patrol is, 'cause it's a game I don't know of. But he generally makes, or his name gets put on top of strategy games like Civilization.
Yes. So the big game, Civ 6, actually, coming soon.
October, Andrew.
I know. I really...
You cleared off the schedule for the rest of the year because it's going to be Civilization from then on?
I am a huge proponent of buying games on sale. Huge proponent of it, especially when you have, like me, a 300-plus deep well of games you could pick from in your Steam library already. I just don't know how I'm not going to click that button the day that game comes out.
Word. I agree with Andrew 100% of the time. If you got so many games that go on sale all the time, you can be buying games for less than full retail price on Steam every day. You should never be buying or pre-ordering things. That doesn't make any sense. But man, I'm probably going to do that for Civ because I need it.
Last time you and I were able to get it through Green Man for like 20% off.
Those sorts of deals all continue to exist. So I don't know what the deals will be for this one. But I'm sure if we started looking out there would be people willing to sell us keys for that game for less than full retail price.
I still don't understand how that works.
It's other marketplaces taking a cut that's different than Steam's marketplace.
Interesting.
I assume. And then either exploiting prices, like price differences from other countries to US dollars, or like buying keys with US dollars and then selling them in euros and weird stuff like that. Like there's a lot of currency stuff happening in some of those cases also.
Yeah, they've taken a lot of steps to try and avoid. So Steam is in multiple countries.
Steam is in almost every country in the planet. It's a lot of places.
Yeah, a lot of people think illegal transactions actually happen through Steam to funnel and clean money, especially from Russia.
So they have clamped down on that stuff super hard for a lot of reasons, those included, but also like just straight up exploitative stuff where people can get scammed into thinking their key can be used in their region and the game is region locked and all kinds of stuff. There's like a lot of like really businessy reasons why they would want to do it that aren't just, hey, straight up people are laundering money.
Yeah. It's always the worst case that gets your attention, right?
Of course, yeah. It's the biggest headline grabbing one is like, oh my god, people are laundering money using video games. It's like, well, maybe, but the bigger thing is they're really just not paying these developers what they're owed, and that's like, a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Back onto our topic. So Sid Meier decided a while ago that he wanted to make phone games, and the one he decided to make was a turn-based strategy game with airplanes, where you... the first game was World War I, and the second game was World War II, and you control campaigns of each country involved in these wars, and you have pilots, and they go out and fly sorties and missions, all of which have different mission parameters, much like any sort of strategy game. And your planes can do maneuvers, and they level up, they learn more maneuvers, etc.
Okay.
It's really actually kind of interesting. But it's kind of weirdly set up in terms of how well they picked the drop in, drop out mechanic. So the missions are probably 3 or 4 minutes long.
Okay. That's pretty short.
They're very short.
Mobile game time frame long.
Unless you get in a giant turning match, right, where like one plane is going right and you're going right and no one can seem to go right fast enough to get your gun to bear on the other person. And then you just keep going in circles for 10 minutes.
Gotcha. Is this a player versus player game?
No, it is a player versus computer game.
I see.
Yes. It is player versus player only in the high score per campaign screen.
Gotcha. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. So this game, I think it has like add-ons you can purchase, which are, more campaigns and more skins for planes and things like that on the phone. But if you bought it on the computer, you got access to everything. Yeah. To justify the price difference on the computer. Again, I didn't pay the price because I got it through the auction that I was playing the system on. Anyway.
Okay.
On a PC, I was on my laptop because it was installable and it was easy to play in the hotel or whatever.
Gotcha.
Didn't require any concentration, and I needed a break from other stuff. You sit there for probably 30 minutes, and maybe 4 or 5 missions in, you're kind of like, all right, this is like the same missions again. Everything kind of feels the same.
Right.
There's really not much more to it other than the strategy mission, fly your plane in, shoot down the other planes.
It's not really a game you would want to play a lot of time. It's like a lot of time at once.
Right. They designed it, I think, for the phone to say, okay, well, you got 10 minutes. Yeah. 10 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. And I know out there that basically everything, that gets put out on a phone now gets released on PC. Banner Saga, that I can think of, is a big one.
Banner Saga was out on consoles and PC probably first.
I believe it was a phone game first.
Nope.
No?
It was a Kickstarter, and then I came to phones at some point, like iPad and stuff.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah. It was a cool Kickstarter. I didn't participate in it, but
interesting.
It was well liked by the people who liked it. And there's a sequel to that game now that finishes whatever the story cliffhanger they gave you in the first one.
Oh, interesting. I do want to play that, so we'll probably review it at some point in this. Anyway, every phone game I think is still released on PC pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like, did you ever play, what was that one, like 10 Million or something? Was a phone game and is on PC now, where it's just like a lot of match 3 kind of stuff. Puzzle Quest is a phone game and is on PC, and those kind of games. Yeah, I mean, when the amount of work it takes to port from a phone to a PC is basically zero, because all the PCs are powerful enough to run all the phone games, so you just hit the export button differently on your code platform. Like, yeah, might as well, right? Even if 5 people buy it, costs you basically nothing.
Is that a good thing?
This is an interesting question, Andrew, because it depends what you mean by, is it a good thing? Is it good that people have choices about where to play their stuff? Yes. Right? I don't think it's ever bad to give people choices. Giving consumers, more options seems like it's always a good thing.
For a while.
The problem becomes, and I know there are a lot of people out there in the games media who have this problem, is that discoverability then becomes basically impossible. Because the new releases list on Steam is essentially completely random. Just list of things that are coming out, right? It has nothing to do with quality or like knowing which ones are good or whether they're important or going to be fun. It's just a question of who hit their I'm coming out now button most recently.
So it's saying you're congesting the market in a way.
Yeah, and Steam has a big issue, like I was saying, with discoverability, right? Like, how do you get your game noticed on Steam? It used to be, 3, 4, 5 years ago, sort of before this mobile on PC explosion, that if your game was good enough to get put on Steam in the first place, it was automatically noteworthy because there was no open process where any person could just submit anything to Steam and it would get up there, right?
Right, and now they have even a system called Greenlight, I think, where they basically allow people to vote on games to see if they're allowed to be on Steam, and then they have open beta access for those games. And
not all those games even have open beta access. It's just like a system where people can vote games in and out. But how many people do you actually think use that system? Like in terms of the people voting, right? It's a pretty low number.
Yeah, for a while they encouraged people to do it, but they don't anymore.
Right. And there's a lot of problems with that system. Games that are really great will just sit there because they don't have like a passionate community. And any game with that spends enough money on marketing essentially can get through that process really quick. Or if you sign up with any publisher, of which there could be 10 million different ones out there that are willing to publish mobile phone ports for essentially no money, right? The publisher takes a percentage, and then the developer gets whatever. Or they take a percentage after the first $5,000 of which they get all. Stuff like this where like, is your game even going to make $5,000? In a lot of cases, no, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a real problem. Steam has a big problem with the amount of games coming out on it all the time. And if you're a person who likes to try and play everything, that's a problem for you. Now, you should argue that you probably shouldn't play most of these games because they're horrible, and play them on your phone if you want to. But it's a legitimate problem for small to medium sized developers.
For a while, a lot of websites like GameSpot and Rock Paper and all these other review sites were kind of floundering and dying because the market was all AAA titles. People were basically playing anything, and they had to rate all the games as good because otherwise they wouldn't get access to do more reviews.
Oh, I mean, that's still definitely a problem, right? Like that's definitely still a thing.
Yeah. But do you think, because I've seen now that Steam now has curated lists by these people that they put on the front page so you can find games that they're suggesting, do you think that there's a new market because of what you're saying here for game reviewers to say, hey, we've sifted through all this, you should play these 5?
I think that the marketplace on Steam, like those Steam curator things, are not actually that good. But like the idea of going to a website to find out what is good on Steam is definitely a thing. Like, what is a good game that is coming out, or like on its way to coming out? Like, how did you and I know that Civilization 6 was coming out soon?
Press coverage through E3 releases and probably multiple websites reporting on it.
Right. So like those sites still exist to serve that purpose, to tell you, hey, like this is Civilization 6 games coming out. We know it's going to be good for reasons. We saw it. Here's some pictures. Here's some videos. We're here. We're going to talk about it. That kind of stuff. Podcasts, websites and stuff. That they exist to serve that purpose, sort of as marketing for these companies, but then also as consumer advice to be like, look, there's 10 million games out here in the world released every day. Which ones should you worry about? I think it's good. Those places aren't going to go away just because of that stuff.
Not to say that all these phone games are bad.
A lot of them are great.
Yeah, a lot of them are really, really good.
Or not a lot of them. Some of them are good.
Okay, so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be too PC, but haha, PC.
Got him. Yeah, it's a thing where like that's definitely a real problem. And if either of us had solutions, we should stop talking about them right now and go do them and make $10 million. Right? Because that's the kind of thing where like if you had a solution for this that would just be boom, here's how to make people know about your game.
Right.
Like, you could just sell that information.
Well, and this kind of just ties into the most recent news about Steam. I don't know if you heard over the last couple of days about them having to revamp their reviews. on your
Yeah, so
website.
did we talk about that the first time they did it? I know they made some
No,
changes today. Okay.
no.
Yeah, that's a good topic we could talk about.
It started with, well, should we finish off the other mobile game thing, or should we go into
Yeah, no,
reviews?
let's finish the mobile game thing.
Okay. My last part of that is a long time ago when phones kind of first came out and people were like, hey, we could watch TV and movies on these. A lot of creators came out and said, don't watch my movie on your phone. That's not what it's, it's meant to be on the big screen, etc. Now, I take issue with that because it's digital entertainment that has no interaction to it. And if it is the person's desire to watch it on a screen that small, then tough. But when it comes to a game, often games for phones or games for PCs are designed for their native environment in terms of interaction and playability.
Mm-hmm.
And when people just direct port them, in the case of these Ace Patrol games, where the buttons that they used are still the buttons that were clearly used for the phone because they're huge.
Yep.
And you have
they look
to
like you should be able to click on them, right?
Right.
You should be able
tap
to
on them.
tap them with your hand. Yep. That's a big problem.
Do you think that that's a valid thing to say, you know what, play phone games on your phone and PC games on your PC and stop porting?
I think that, so no, I don't think you should say stop porting, right? But I think you should say do a better job porting, or be more judicious in deciding what to port, right? Maybe some games can be ported such that you take the big buttons away, scale down the UI so you get to see more of the screen, and that's cool for a different reason. You could add more enemies or something because you don't have to worry about the phone hardware, or you can do some cool stuff like that. Make the game a game for the platform that it's trying to come out on. And if it's on phones, that's great. Have all these cool touch controls and stuff. But then when you put it on a different platform, consider why that platform is cool and do something cool with that. Don't just throw it up there and be like, I don't know, here, whatever, dude. And if you do something like that, just expect that people aren't going to like that version of the game, and then just be like, no, this is bad. And maybe that looks bad on you as a developer or a publisher or whoever.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Thanks for letting me pick your brain on that one. I felt a little awkward being like, well, it's a Sid Meier's game, and I think it would be decent on a phone, but I'm really not having fun long term playing this.
Yeah, I think it's totally reasonable to say that you're not having fun playing that. Yeah, it was clearly not the way it was meant to be played.
Yeah. All right, so give me the rundown on what happened with this Steam thing. I know that they banned a company because people were suing people, and now they've made some changes.
Well, so those things aren't related, it turns out. Do you want to talk about the company being banned thing, or do you want to talk about the review system thing?
I thought they were related.
Nope.
I'm sure the company ban thing is a much shorter story if they're not related then.
Yeah, so the company is this company named although I don't know why I even mentioned them. Maybe we should edit that out. I don't want to give them traffic. But basically, this company was a noted, I don't know if they were a publisher or a developer, but basically they got caught cheating the system in a lot of ways. Either publishing games that were broken and then people called them out on it, or doing some bad work. Not just bad in the case of oh, this game isn't fun, but bad in the case of this game is just bad. It doesn't work, or it just straight up crashes. It's not complete. It doesn't, these sort of things. And people would, on the forums and on Steam itself, give this game bad reviews. And then they would, they were also caught posting fake reviews of oh, this is the dev guy posting a 5-star review of his own product. It's that's not really obvious shady stuff. And the final straw was that this company decided to sue Valve to divulge. They were initiating a lawsuit against the people who had left bad reviews on their game, and they wanted Valve to divulge the private information of those 100 or something accounts. That they could sue them directly.
What was the? Did they have any idea behind why they would get away with a lawsuit for people leaving a bad review?
I don't know why they would think that, because it's very obviously protected speech. You could say what I don't, and I also don't know what country this is from, so it's also possible they're suing under some kind of different definition of speech. But I mean, you can kind of post whatever you want on the internet in a lot of cases, for good or for bad, and there aren't really that a lot of consequences for that.
I used to think that posting anonymously on the internet was for good, and now I think it's just turning into mostly for bad.
I mean, so in the case where you are leaving a review on a game that's bad,
I would put my name on it.
And you're saying that it's bad, well, you're putting your Steam account's name on it at the minimum, right? Like, you can't get rid of that. That's always there.
Sure, but if my opinion is strong enough that I'm going to go write a review, which everyone should do on iTunes for We Were Gamers.
That's right.
I know how you think about this podcast, 4 or 5 stars. If we're doing an okay job, that would be cool.
Yeah, please. 5 stars only. But yeah,
but I would put my name if I was going to say this is, digital name, whatever. But
sure. So, but they're, I don't know what sort of basis this company thinks they have to sue Valve to get these. So the goal, I assume, from this company is to sue the end users here. Now, I don't know why they want to sue these people. One would assume that it's like libel or something. I can't think of any other reason why you would want to sue people that reviewed your video game. But, libel is a kind of a high bar to set through posts on comments on the internet. You can say a lot of things, and I don't know that you're going to reach the bar of libel. And you're libel about a company that makes video games when... Is it libel if it's true? Like, I don't think so, right? So, like, it's a really weird story. And then Valve comes around and says, well, you're going to sue our customers. We're going to kick you off the platform. We don't want you here. Which seems like it's within their right to do, as it is a agreement between them and Valve to publish their games there. Valve has no obligation to publish any kind of game that people want. You have to work with them. And so they kicked them off Steam.
Boom, done. I'm sure we'll never hear anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know. If they are actually suing them, that would actually be really interesting, because there's a chance that like the business documents and stuff might come out. And those are always interesting from a like games industry business point of view. Like how are these contracts written? How does the money change hands? That kind of stuff. Because that information is all secret. No one in the public really knows. So if there's an actual court case, which God knows how there would be, this person seems like a crackpot. But if there was, there's always the chance that kind of secret stuff would get out, which might be cool.
That would be cool.
But yeah, seems unlikely based on obvious truths.
This did not lead to changes that they have also brought about in the same system recently, which are extremely interesting.
Yeah, so there was a separate thing started before this stuff.
So maybe we should give people an idea here. Much like Yelp or...
Yelp is a very good example.
Or, those similar types of system, Google reviews, etc. You, for any game on Steam, can, through the interface, very quickly and easily click leave a review, give it a star rating, and put in your Yelp review of how well you cooked pasta in J.J. Krakowski's pasta cooker.
Yep. It's real easy to just go in and be like, hey, I want to leave a review for this game. And here's what I think about it. Here's the things that people are saying about game X. And then those sort of reviews come up as positive, mixed, and negative, right? So like you pretty much give things a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I don't know that you actually give stars here.
Oh, okay.
But the way it works, you give things a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then the more thumbs, the things that will be shown. I'm looking at one right now so I can see this.
You know what gets stars? Stars go to mods, I think. Stars go to mods, and thumbs up, thumbs down, or mixed for the games.
For the games, right. So so the things that a person will see when they're looking at, hey, is this game any good? I'm going to scroll down to these reviews and see what it says. So you will see the most helpful reviews. And in this little section here, you see each review will have a thumb up, thumb down. It'll show the amount of time the person played the game underneath that. the person's name, how many like reviews they've done, and like whatever little text they entered, and then you have the option to say, was this review helpful? Yes, no, or I thought it was funny.
How are they changing this?
So this system before was just this: anyone, whether you owned the game or not, could go in here and leave reviews about games. And then more recently, they changed it so that you had to have the game in your account, which is, the kind of thing that seems to make a lot of sense, right? Like you should own the games that you're reviewing. You shouldn't just be able to.
You should even probably have played an hour.
So you don't have to do that. It doesn't say you have to have played any amount of time. But it shows there, so you could see this person has played 0.1 hours of this game. You're like, well, I don't know how useful this person who played 6 minutes of a game is. Maybe I'm not going to trust this review. I'm going to mark this as unhelpful. Like this 5-star best game ever review for a person who played 6 minutes, maybe not trustworthy, right? So anyway, these scores, these thumbs ups and thumbs downs get aggregated in a big way, which then gives the game sort of an overall review score at like kind of a higher level that people can see that says user reviews, positive, very positive, negative, mixed, this kind of thing. So you can kind of just see at the very top of the page, well, here's what the people think about this kind of quickly. And so this system was fine for a long time, or at least, was what it was for a long time. But recently, Steam decided to change it to, in order to leave a review for a game, anyone who owned a game could still write a review for it, but the only ones that would show up on the page were ones who had bought the game through Steam. Now that seems like a weird distinction to make, right?
Right.
Because you're on Steam, where else did they get it? Well, Andrew, they could have gotten it from places like you and I did that time through other sites that sell Steam keys.
Sure, or I just got Civ 3 for 75 cents on an Amazon sale and then put in my key.
Exactly. So these kind of things show up as whether you got the game. So these things were invisible to the review system. There was no way to know how a person got a game. If you received a code for free from the developer, that was not noted. If you received you bought a copy off a third-party site like that, activated it on Steam, also not noted. So you would just see, the account, who wrote it, how long they played it, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever they wrote. So now, after this first set of changes, it would show if you had activated it from a key, from a third-party place or from a developer or whatever, or you had bought it through Steam. And only the ones that were bought through Steam would by default show up on the page of the game.
You could still click through and see the other ones.
The other reviews are all still there, and they would definitely affect the like best reviews and stuff. If you're looking for like the most recent stuff or the ones that were posted most recently or the ones that were most helpful rated or whatever, those would all still be there. But the score, the overall score that shows up at the top of the page for like positive, negative, mixed or whatever would only be calculated from the people who bought through Steam.
This seems like a possible infringement of free speech.
So no, right? Because Steam owns the platform and they can let you do whatever they want with it, right? It's not a free speech argument, but it is potentially a fairness argument. Like, is it fair to say that these group of people should not be allowed to say their opinion about this game?
Well, this also complicates things for people outside of maybe the system a little bit. Like, let's say you work for Naughty Dog and you send out codes to people so they can play and review your game. And part of the deal is if you review it on the website, you also need to review it in Steam.
Naughty Dog, a noted PlayStation-only developer. But yes, your point is well taken. And actually, the concern that a lot of people had with the first iteration was that, say, a game that had a very big Kickstarter happens, right? Well, all the Kickstarter backers get copies of the game for free, because that's what usually the deal is, right? You back their Kickstarter, they'll give you a copy of the game. You activate it on Steam at some later point when it comes out. And because you're such a passionate person that you wanted to back this game way back when, you leave it a glowing review because maybe you had played it already in early access. And then, of course, you go on to play the game anyway, so your review will show that you played 100 hours of it or whatever. But now your score doesn't count towards that positive or negative thing, even though the game has a built-in user base of like 10,000 people because they sold so many keys through their Kickstarter, right?
Right.
And now those numbers don't matter at all. They have 0 because it's only the people that buy it on the store that count. So that's kind of weird. They'll be like, oh, it's 800 reviews, but 0 score. What? So there's like some weird stuff there. I think the thing that they're really trying to push back against here is sort of like a quid pro quo, like pay to play kind of system that people could possibly get into, right? I will give you this key under the assumption that, I, the developer, get a positive review on Steam, and my score for my new game comes up into the positive rating.
I mean, arguably this might even make it less ethical in that, okay, now the reviewer can't give you a key because you need to purchase it, so instead they're going to send you money to purchase their game?
Yeah, Andrew,
that's even less ethical, right?
Oh, certainly it's less ethical. I think we can all agree that is... that's directly payola, right? Like, that's literally the thing.
Sure, but this is now an environment they may have created, right?
Potentially, sure. But Andrew, if you're just giving people money, why do they have to do what you want them to do with it? They could just take your money and be like, peace.
Sure, unless
thanks for the free
want
money.
More money next time
to buy the game so they could leave a review for the purpose of getting a free game, I guess.
Who's to say what you did with that money or, how you got it or whatever?
Yeah. It's, yes. So, that's possible. I think more is that you're raising the bar, right? It's now a little more difficult for someone to do this. You can't just give someone a key. An unethical developer can't just create keys for their game, right? Because as a developer, you can create as many of those keys as you want, right? There's an infinite number of them. So you just generate more keys, and hand them out to anyone who wants them in exchange for reviews. Well, now you have to figure out banking stuff and way to transfer money. So, the bar is a little bit higher. And if that deters people enough, in theory, that's good.
Can I put a cynical spin on it for a second?
Sure, yeah.
This is Steam forcing developers to sell more in terms of if they want their game to sell well on Steam, they can't go give keys to outside places like Amazon and Green Man and all that other stuff.
Yes, so it is definitely a move by Steam to refocus the marketplace on themselves, right? And that's not... it is an anti-competitive move, maybe? But, it's a free market. No one is obligated to buy anything through Steam. And just because it has a large market share doesn't mean it's not allowed to do these sort of things. It's I think a lot of people have some issues with it. Valid issues, but it is what it is. And sort of that's how it's going to be. The second iteration that they did most recently, starting, was it yesterday or earlier this afternoon or something?
Yeah, it was earlier today, I think. September 20th is when we're recording. So.
Yeah. So was that they tweaked the way that those numbers would affect. I've forgotten the story now. What the change was? It was sort of a minor tweak around the edges, such that the really good reviews that were marked helpful it was the reviews that were marked as helpful from people that didn't buy the game through Steam now would have a chance to show up on the page, the initial page.
So at least you can have your vote heard a little bit.
Right. So say someone writes a really well written, amazing review, all kinds of sources and great, text, and just a really great written piece of thing. It's really helpful, really explains a lot about stuff. and people rightfully rate it as extremely helpful. But because that person didn't buy the game through Steam, you would never be able to see it on the initial page, even if it's the best written piece of English in the history of the language. Now that thing would have a chance of showing up on that page if it was rated helpfully. So that's like kind of a good compromise, I guess.
Yeah.
But is it going to be as good as how it was? I don't know. Was the system that was there before even that good? Probably had a lot of problems. I don't know. It's like they take a step forward and a step backward at the same time. So, I don't know. There's some guys out there who track a lot of this information. There's a website called Steam Spy that you can go to that sort of tries to use statistics and some stuff to figure out how many copies of games have been sold through Steam, which is all obviously information that is not public. But it uses public information to sort of determine that stuff. And, the guys out there saying like, look, this information, these review things are like both good and bad. Like, and I don't know, it solves this one problem, but kind of creates these other ones. I don't know. I think a lot of people are very mixed about it. I personally am.
A lot of people probably don't see why this would affect them, especially, like console gamers or people who only play AAA titles. You're going to play the next Arkham Batman game, right? You don't need to read the reviews on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, probably you would need to read the reviews on it. If you did on the last one, you wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah.
So it affects kind of the mid-range, A- to B titles.
Well, that
positivity
rating also affects whether it shows up on Steam's, top selling list or popular list and stuff, that kind of stuff. Those like positive or negative scores for the games are a factor in whether they can be discovered through the front page of the store.
My point being, though, is that it does matter to people on consoles eventually, because if you like to play indie titles, a lot of them start on Steam, and when they get reviewed well and then picked up and played by a lot of people, PlayStation or Xbox comes along and says, port your game over and we'll pay you some money.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those games are also being developed, some of the bigger ones are being developed, for both at the same time, and they'll release
again the ones
places
that don't really need the reviews, though.
Yeah. And I feel like that is happening less these days, where it comes out on PC first and then comes to PlayStation later. But it definitely still does happen. The PlayStation and Xbox digital marketplaces are a little bit weirder these days. In terms of how their digital games are being promoted. But like, absolutely, there's a lot of great stuff that starts on the PC and makes its way to consoles later in its lifetime, or as a different form. They do like what you were saying with the phone games should do, where they go, okay, well, this was cool with a mouse, but it kind of sucks with the controller, so let's like rework some things here, and well, then you can add this other cool system, and like Diablo 3, I know a game you and I both have played, eventually came to consoles and apparently sold extremely well. That's a
very well designed PC game, so it took a long time for them to get it over because you couldn't do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that's not exactly like an indie game or anything. God knows Blizzard is not a starving indie studio, but like the idea is similar, right? Like they adapted it to the platform that it was on, and this sort of like how to find games, and I mean, like, you want people to be able to make money doing the thing that they like to do, right? And that they love doing, and they love to make these games. Well, you would like to hope that there's some way for those people to make a living off them, and that involves selling copies to people.
There you have it. It's fascinating to me. I like that. Something as simple as reviews can be so complicated and have such an impact on everyone.
I mean, when you really drill down into like the deep layers of the business stuff, it gets really crazy, right? Like, it's like going into the real minutiae of anything. It like you can go really deep on anything, it turns out.
Should we do part A or should we leave that for next week?
Is part A quick?
It's more like a therapy session for me.
Okay.
Competitive games. Have we talked competitive games on this podcast before?
I don't know, maybe a little bit.
Like Dota 2 or Hearthstone or things where your only option really is to play against another person.
Okay. What about them?
Do you I know you've kind of quit playing Dota and don't play Hearthstone as much as you used to probably. Do you find yourself as you get older burning out on playing against other people? Overwatch, etc.
No, no, I don't think it's that. I think that the it's not about playing against. It's not that playing against other people burns me out. It's that a lot of the games which are competitive also end up having like either large real time commitments to them, or a lot of like Twitch motion fast action kind of stuff to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't find engaging these days. I sort of never really have, with some exceptions. Uh, and I don't really want to engage with that a lot of the time. Also, like in a lot of cases, the communities around the higher levels of those games become really, really bad, or even like the lower levels in some cases. And I just don't want to engage with people who are just being jerks to everyone all the time.
Fair enough. I found myself in the time when I was not trying out Ace Patrol 1 and 2, grinding on Hearthstone, the ladder, this past week. I think I texted you a little bit about it, and I got to a certain level, and it just got really streaky and annoying, and I found myself just like thinking about playing something else, and I thought about Overwatch, and I was like, well, I'm already kind of tilted and angry about my experience playing against other people in that. I don't know that playing more competitive games is my problem, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of got to thinking about it, and I thought, other than Hearthstone and Overwatch, I don't play Dota much. I don't play Heroes of the Storm much, and if I do, I usually play versus PCs. I feel maybe like, other than when friends are on or doing something, and I don't know. Like, this is why I said it might be a little bit of a therapy session. I might feel myself burning out a little bit and wanting to do solo stuff more as my time amount for playing stuff gets smaller and my investment in the experience becomes more precious. I feel like I don't want to feel like I wasted my time.
Mm-hmm.
And like losing in a competitive game, I know it's part of the process, and like, oh, well, that was close or whatever, and you're supposed to find enjoyment in it. But like if you do it a bunch and you don't have like a particularly successful day, it's hard to feel like you haven't missed out on some other experience you could have used that time for.
Sure. Well, Andrew, there's a lot of people out there on the internet who think that the problem you're having is actually just with Hearthstone specifically, and that it doesn't reward skillful play.
I've heard that recently. People kind of don't think that the game got a good set of cards recently, and it's kind of just devolved into dice rolls.
Yeah, and so they're sort of reacting to the idea that randomness is a very big part of that game, and that the sort of fun of playing it in a competitive fashion is sort of sapped by the fact that you can't really be skillful at a game that is so heavily based on randomness.
Well, I got to this certain point, when I feel like my skill level got me pretty far on the ladder. I mean, I got to basically where you have to start really playing a large amount of hours to get forward, and I don't seem to be going anywhere, which means I know how to play the game well enough to get past most people. That makes you wonder whether they're right about how much randomness there is. I know in Overwatch, particularly, it's 99% skill, right? Like,
sure,
if you're good at that game, you're good at that game. So when you go into it and you have a couple bad sessions in a row, if you had fun, you had fun. Most of the time, losing isn't that bad, but if a little bit of it feels like, I could have done something else, I guess. If you get a loot box, everything's better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a competitiveness is it's a thing. I think, though, to your point, that saying like you really are, you don't want these sort of like solo experience. You're sort of more interested in these solo experiences. I never, when I used to play Dota, I never played by myself. I always had a group of people that I played with online, And if I wasn't playing with them, I didn't play, because it's not fun to play that game by yourself. And so even in those cases, I had a group of friends I was playing with, most nights, to be online playing this, very team-based skilled game. And even with a group of friends, at some point I just didn't like the way that game made me feel after, not because so much of it was like, I know I lost because it was my fault. Right. And that really sucks,
right,
knowing
yeah,
that, like, you're the
play...
reason you lost. Like, or like, if you let the team down in some way, or because of a decision you made 20 minutes ago, you cost the team this game, or, these kind of things, right? Like, what could I have done better? Like, that search for what I could do better was not fun. And so, I sort of stopped playing that game. Not to say I would never choose to play it again, but I just don't really feel the need to. And it doesn't help that a lot of the Dota community, obviously not the friends that I had, but are kind of jerks. Like, there's a lot of people in that game who are real jerks.
Yeah. You know what Dota 2 is good for?
What?
LATD.
That's right. That is an amazing game.
Modification for Dota 2. Dota 2 being one of these competitive top-down games like Heroes of the Storm.
A MOBA, we call them.
Yeah, MOBA game, which we can go into in another episode, I guess. Has modifications. You can play other styles of games. I'm thinking we should go play some LATD and wipe this competitive sourness out of our mouths a little bit.
Oh yeah, man, that sounds pretty good, actually. Go for a good TD, man. Tower defense sounds...
Tower defense. Good. We should do an episode on tower defense games.
I don't know if I want to play more than 1 or 2 tower defense games.
We could play like 7 or 8 tower defense games. We'll do like 4 each. And then...
Now I'm getting tired thinking about it.
Oh, man. Well, we'll do something on tower defense games for people in the future.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Because there's some good ones on mobile, actually.
Yes, there are, definitely.
So cool. For people that want a light version of that experience. But that's another time, another episode. If people want to know what tower defense games are before then, feel free to email us at podcast@weweregamers.com. That's the website. You know what? Up until that moment, JJ, I felt sharper than last week. Like, I had a cold last week. The Talisman episode was really, really good, but I felt like foggy.
I like that Talisman episode.
Yeah, the Talisman was good.
I think, Andrew, what you meant to say was that they could visit our website, which is weweregamers.com. And if they wanted to send us an email about any of the things they've heard on this show, or to ask us questions, they could send that email to podcast@weweregamers.com.
Exactly. They can hit us on Twitter somewhere too.
Yeah, it's @weweregamers on Twitter. And we also have an Instagram account they could follow us on for when we decide to post pictures, which is weweregamers on Instagram. So yeah.
Thank you for saving me there. Oh,
you're welcome.
Man. I felt real good. I felt really sharp that whole episode, and I still have that little lingering bit of the cold, but oh well. Screwed it up at the end.
Nah, it's fine.
Don't forget, if you think people should know about this podcast, to write a review on iTunes or some other platform that you use, and maybe the word will get out there by our 26th episode.
Half-anniversary. Sounds good.
All right, LTD time.
Yeah.